Hi, I'm Ricky Nelson, the Communications Coordinator for the Art Directors Guild, and I'm here with the 2024 Imaginator Award recipient, Harrison Ellenshaw, here at EagleCon. So tell me about your life as a painter, as a matte painter. Do you remember the first time you picked up a paintbrush?
Since my father was an artist, I was always fascinated. So even when I was a little kid, as soon as I could, I'd say, "Can I have some paints and paint something?" And uh, so I, I wasn't very good, but there was something kind of magical about it because I came from a family of artists on my father's side. And so art was everywhere. And eventually, as I got older, I decided I didn't want to follow in my father's footsteps. So I went to I went to college and was a psychology major. I couldn't get a job, and so at one point, my father said to me that uh, one of his friends, Alan Maley, who was a matte artist, was head of the matte department at Disney. And he said, my father said to me, "I know you're not crazy about doing this," but he said, "Give it 6 months and see, see what happens." And Alan was a wonderful mentor and a teacher, and his enthusiasm not just for visual effects, but for film. And I was hooked. So I became a big fan of motion pictures and, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I get to a point where I'm going, well, I like this better than this one. And then visual effects kind of folded into that. And it was an amazing ride. I loved it. 6 months was up, and I said, "Hang in there. I'm on board for as long as I can do this." And it was it was very strange because um, all my friends were like, "What's wrong with you? Why you're gonna do like paint? You see the numbers and then you mix and you put it in there." And they were kind about it, but of course they gave me a hard time. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" "Well, I'm going to be a financial advisor." I said, "Oh, that sounds really boring." So uh, it just took off from there.
What would you say is one of your favorite projects that you've ever worked on? What was your favorite?
Well, I've worked on so many notable films for different reasons, and I say often, they're like children. I love them each for a different reason. I Unbelievable, but I've worked on, my first big break. Well, going back before that, I worked on Man Who Fell to Earth because the production company that wasn't Disney uh, just thought, well, I think we need some matte paintings in here, so why don't we call around to the studios? And most of the studios didn't have visual effects departments. And so they asked me if I'd work on a film with David Bowie called Man Who Fell to Earth. And I read the script, had no clue what it was about because it, in fact, in one scene, David Bowie, who's Bowie, supposed to be an astronaut, is walking away from the spaceship. And I said to the director, the producer, "So this is when he's arrived?" He goes, "No, this is when he's leaving." Uh-huh. Okay. This will be interesting. And it was a hoot. I mean, it was so insane. And I'd grown up watching my father on Disney projects, and it made sense. We've got a protagonist and antagonist, and all that kind of stuff. This was like just throw crazy ideas in a blender and let's see what comes up. And so I took there was a screening of the finished film. Took my friends. I said I worked on this. A couple of shots or whatever. I don't know. Maybe there was a dozen, and the lights went on, and everybody in the audience looked at everybody else and goes, "What was that about?" I said, "Don't look at me. I couldn't make sense of it either." But it was such a weird experience that it was kind of fun. And it was certainly not in the Disney mold, and it was crazy. And I was working, then I started working on Disney films, and I got a job working on Pete's Dragon, which I thought was going to be the big hit. But somewhere in there, I got a call to work on Star Wars. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, yeah." The reason I took that job was I loved American Graffiti. And even though now it's, I remember overhearing somebody in the commissary say, "Oh, well, there's this film coming out, Star Wars, and films with wars in the title, no, it's not going to do very well." I don't know where that guy is today. He's probably running a studio. So it all kind of then it began to keep pushing forward, and I was working on some not very good Disney films, but Star Wars led to Empire Strikes Back. I worked on Black Hole just before that, so now I was pretty immersed in it, and it was a great ride. Then, in spite of the fact I worked on Cat from Outer Space, and Escape from Witch Mountain, and then there's Return to Witch Mountain, and I never knew which one was the sequel. Well, do they escape and then they return, or do they return and then escape? The writers didn't know either, so it was pretty bad. But they can't all be Star Wars, and so I've had enough good fortune that probably my favorite, if I had to say, for so many reasons, was Empire Strikes Back, and it's one of the few sequels that is as good as the original. And I just loved it because I'd moved up north to San Rafael, where ILM was, and it was like the dream team, because of the move, then George Lucas and Gary Kurtz could cherry pick the ones they wanted to come join them, and I lucked out. It was.
What would you say to up-and-coming artists or artists who've been painting for some time in this industry, who want to work on these big projects? What should they do? Or what advice can you give those artists?
Well, paint because you love it, and learn to love it, or don't learn to love it. But everything, you can be envious of others, but that doesn't do you any good. So go see movies. Go see a bunch of trailers. I was watching trailers at home yesterday, and trailers fascinate me because you've got to get one, two things across, and you don't have much time to do it. It's like commercials, and that's a talent. And I'm looking at these, and they're there are few effects in them because of you don't have effects done, and when trailers comes before the movie, blah blah. But the cinematography, the performances, the editing is so far above what I worked on. It's like night and day. I mean, it's dynamic and it's amazing. So, to answer your question, what would I say to artists is, you know, keep going. It's gonna be rough sometimes, and there are times you're just gonna say, I quit and I'll go do something else. That's okay if you want to do something else, and it's really hard, even these days, to make a living in film because everybody wants to work in film. There are people who wear the shirt says, what I really want to do is direct. And it's like, yeah, you and 1,000 others. I once asked a friend of mine who said, I want to direct. And I said, why? And he said, because I don't want to tell people what to do. Okay, well, have kids then. I don't know what that means. If you want to be a filmmaker, start by be a screenwriter, kind of come in from the bottom and learn and watch films and analyze them and break them down and go with somebody who is maybe a filmmaker or an aspiring filmmaker, and then have a discussion about it and say, well, why did they cut away over here? And did they cross the line? What? Cross the line? When somebody said cross the line to me at first, I thought, what line? Where's the line? But that it's true, and there's a lot of lazy filmmaking now, and I think if you don't pay attention, if you don't have a passion for it, you're going to kind of fall by the wayside. And hang in there. You're going to work on bad stuff. You're going to work on stuff that isn't really your kind of thing, because there's always somebody else saying, well, we're doing it this way and that way. Just be patient. Don't be too aggressive. And especially if you're working for a production company that's well known, you get, maybe, if you're, some experience, you get maybe one chance. And that is to say to George Lucas, you don't want to just say, why does the Wookiee not talk? And why didn't he get a medal? That'll get you on the street so fast it'll make your head spin. But think about it. And I also, George, what a great guy, but demanding. And if you had another idea, or if you didn't like something, you better have what the solution to the problem. And the only one he ever, of my ideas that he bought, and I didn't bug him a lot, was when Luke falls down that thing and gets scooped into the other thing in Cloud City, whatever it is. Originally, it was a white light down there. And I said, excuse me, sir, but the white light is could be heaven, could be something positive. It needs to be very dark and unknown and scary. What's down there? I mean, there's monsters, knives, and he bought it. He made the picture. Not even close. Oh man, but I've got to the point now where I'm retired and I see things that just amaze me, and they're wonderful filmmakers coming, along, all sizes and shapes and genders, and I think that's the democratization of the art is good.
That was it. Thank you very much. I'm going to do my intro one more time.